My name is Jennifer Williams, and I have Dr. Amer Qatanani with me. Today we're going to be presenting on several objectives. First, we're going to reflect on some lessons that we learned when COVID-19 happened, because the greatest minds had to all teach online, and so we had to adapt and do a lot of different things. We had to adapt asynchronous modeling to offer synchronous opportunities within the asynchronous session. And we also had to identify new innovative ways to connect with our students and build learning experiences. The first thing I would like is for you to answer two questions, and you can do so in the chat. The first question is, were you involved in online education prior to 2020? And the second is, did you encounter student concerns that were driven by factors that you never experienced before in education? If you would like to include a brief example that's not anything too specific, but feel free to do so as well. From my perspective, I have been teaching online since 2008. So it has been a different scenario each year. We started out with LMS platforms that were really clunky and students had trouble navigating to, everything got a little bit better. But I really saw a change when COVID happened, because all of a sudden asynchronous became a guide for what was normally synchronous learning. And so to my second question, I want to sort of give you an example of some of the situations that I encountered being a faculty member during the COVID-19 pandemic. Some things I would say I never experienced before as an educator. Now, one such instance was I had a student come to me, and she came to during one of our live sessions. So it was an asynchronous class, but we had weekly live sessions. And she shared with the class something that, a lot of times you may have a student who experiences a death in their family, but you don't normally have a student that experiences multiple deaths within a very short period of time. And this student shared that, she came to the live session because she didn't know where else to go. She needed to just be around some people that were something different than what she was dealing with. And the reason was she had lost her sister and her parents within a matter of 2 weeks. In that, she also ended up being the aunt to several of her sister's kids. Her sister's children moved in with her. So her complete life situation changed in a matter of a few weeks. And these issues, yes, we've all experienced death in the classroom before, but not at the magnitude that we faced during COVID-19 pandemic. And for me, that really, being part of that single situation, there were a lot of other situations that I encountered in the classroom, but that one situation really kind of made me realize how important it was to exhibit empathy in the classroom. So to give you a real solid definition of what I'm talking about, empathy is an act or an attempt to understand someone else's perspective. And educators across the nation have embraced new ways to connect with their students with virtual learning experiences that are equivocal to that in-person experience. But, citing my example, some situations we've never even faced, and to have to try to connect and embrace someone else through a computer screen has been really hard. But what our institution really focused on over the last year was embracing empathy awareness through different trainings and empowering that connection through synchronous opportunities. And that really led to what I consider probably some of the best empathetic connections that I've made in online classrooms in the last 10 years. Most of them were made in the last year. So moving forward, I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Qatanani. he has some questions for the administrators.
Thank you, Jen. So I really have, as you all know, we all experienced a difficult time during COVID. When COVID hit, we had to switch to online modalities, and was I need to know what is the biggest challenge from the admin standpoint on trying to really implement a new policy procedure to improve the online qualities so you can avoid any miscommunication between you and the student. I would like to hear from the faculty and the admin here on the room first, and then we can continue. So the question, what is the biggest challenge you faced as a ground administrator when you switch to from ground to online for the COVID-19? I would like to hear from you first. And while you typing, you can also what is the most important policy or that you implement to help with this transition? Great, preparing our instructor. That's great. Amy, this is a great point. Testing policy, that's true. Thank you, Linda.
I also noticed a comment further up from Linda that mentioned how difficult it was for teaching laboratory sciences and purchasing supplies for students. It was a great comment.
Absolutely, thank you. So one of the largest challenge we really faced, how we can implement and making sure we provide a high quality of online learning is the same quality on the ground. And you know, a lot of faculty, they got tons of experience on the ground, but when we try to implement these online modalities, we really faced a lot of challenge on exactly using new technology, Zoom, WebEx, Microsoft Team, where we start from scratch with them and help them implement orientations and help not just only the faculty and the student. One of the experience we had to switch 300 faculty and 4,000 to 5,000 students to online format, and it wasn't really easy for us, but implement a new policy and changing expectations and how you really want to implement the online to serve and to leverage these teaching experience for these students was one of these biggest challenge. But with work and simplifies process for the faculty and the team will help a lot to really maximize the student learning and moving to the next task. It's so important for us to really identify the communication and collaboration within department because in order to really achieve the goal from the enrollment since the students start, we got to prepare the student for online modalities on the computer assessment, making sure they have all the tools they need in order for them to move and to be succeed in the online environment. When you mentioned earlier about the lab, I work in healthcare, and one of these, the practical portion, it was missing. So we had to implement a lot of simulations and competencies within the online program in order for the student to really track their progress throughout the program and seeing what type of skills they need in order for them to mastery and move to the next level. And this simulation helps a lot, even on the reading exercises where we implement Learn Smart or Smart Book. You track the student behavior when they read something and go back to the reading implement assessment where the student exactly knows. Sometimes it just online helps where I know I have a tracking record for every single student, what type of trend happening, how I'm going to implement a new software or a new technology to really leverage these and maximize the student learning and move them to the next task. It's so important for us to really identify the student needs prior to the start date for every single. Some of them has technical issues. Some of them, they really need to understand the LMS platform, how to navigate, how to interact with the. It's a small thing, make a huge difference. And as good as with the student really understand these navigation and online, it will become really easy for us to really communicate with them and try to bring the best of them. And again, when we switch to online, a lot of faculty have to sit for 8 hours or 6 hours to try to just prepare, stay on live. But the whole software helps a lot to really simulation to. We want to keep the student engaged, not to just sit and listening. We need them to apply this knowledge. In order for them, we got to let them be part of the process, learning the process, in order for us to really help them to move to the next level. So this is one of the biggest accomplishments we really implement when we move to online modalities. We need to help them. You got to be part of the engagement, because without engagement in online, we're missing the student. And that's where the key point, not just only lecturing, it's get the student part of the process in order for them to achieve the goal. Any question?
I just wanted to mention Linda's comment. She says, after finally getting all the faculty online to Moodle, then the college considered a new LMS platform. Our college did that as well. We were all on Moodle, and it seemed like we all had the hang of it. And they were like, you know what? We think Canvas will support our students better. So we also had a lot of changes then from that, which we have really, really liked the Canvas platform and the features that it offers. But it was very hard to keep up with that, because we got everyone online and everything was working good, and then it was, let's change something and make it a little bit better. And I really saw that as a major trend between 2020 and 2021, is how can we improve this? How can we make this better? A lot of faculty in classrooms were asking that. How can we communicate better with the students? How can we engage the students? So really great.
I agree. And as Jennifer mentioned, is switching from LMS to LMS. It's not just only from it's like magic happening. There's a lot of work behind the scene you have to do with admin, understand, and the student support, enrollment team, faculty, onboarding, student onboarding. You get a new student and you get existing student. How we want to make sure we are on the whole reporting. If you want to track below 70 or student at risk, you have totally different platform you need to work with. And you got to really have a tracking record for every single movement with the student. And that's where you need a lot of work, even tracking attendance. Where if you want to integrate software within Canvas or Moodle or Blackboard, we have tons of work to do in order for us to achieve the goal. There's a lot of challenges happen throughout the transitioning. But again, as good as soon as everyone understands the process and the expectations, I think we all can agree the online modality, it's a success model where we can implement to improve the student skills so they can perform well, and we are seeing it.
So to answer your question, Linda, how long did it take to migrate laboratory lecture content? We did it in different phases. So depending on the content of the class, a lot of the content was just live sessions. Our school at one point was having 3-hour live sessions, but we could tell that the engagement wasn't there. Students were really struggling to log in for those 3-hour sessions. And so we changed our stance. We made it 1-hour live sessions, and we started implementing external tools and content such as Biodigital Human and other pieces to help the students, be part of it visually and utilize the tools, but also learn the content.
And most of the program now, Linda, move to blended modalities where the student complete everything online, even the competency, but they have to come to the campus once or twice. That's in general to perform the skills in order for them to really master these skills, because it's with healthcare it's a little bit tricky. You got to really make sure all but the admin portion, it's you can implement it online. For example, electronic health record, you can totally provide a total software online. You can help these students to really mastery on the administrative portion of it, to really help them to really make sure they are putting data for these patients and information, versus you got to really perform some skills. You have to go to the ground, to the campus to perform it. But overall, utilizing the LMS, it's there, and it's so important for us to put everything on this platform to make sure we have a visual information for the students, so we can track if there's trend happening. We are with the student throughout their journey, so that's where we can maximize them and their learning and help them and provide best experience. Even on these tracking for surveys and satisfaction student, we really want to make sure we are take these surveys seriously and online. We need to analyze them and really break them down so we can follow up. It's not just only send them to the faculty or deans. We got to really follow up with these surveys in order for us to really follow up with these students on the online modalities.
So when leaders and teachers and others listen using empathy to understand what the person is thinking and feeling without trying to change them or fix them, that person feels valued. And we really tried to focus when we were teaching when we were guiding our instructors to help understand the students better and connect with the students and build rapport. And it really helped us bridge the gap for connection, because when everyone was feeling very disrupted and moved so drastically, it was very hard to be able to make everyone feel safe and feel valued. So it was really important to improve our empathy awareness. And it also gave individuals freedom to themselves to perform at their highest potential. So I do see a question, but for faculty to learn to migrate from Moodle to Canvas, all this content. So we did have a lot of, we called them Canvas champions to help us do this. And it was a bunch of our strongest faculty as well as our program directors to help guide other faculty and students, as well as LMS administrators, to really kind of get used to that migration from Moodle to Canvas. There were a lot of training sessions, and there were also issues in the transition when we initially started tracking attendance issues. Attendance didn't work correctly, and there was a lot of manual effort that was done by our team to be able to bridge that gap. But it was important to do so, because I do believe the improvement of online delivery happened after we made that transition to a better LMS platform. It also helped the students and faculty connect, because believe it or not, if everyone was having a little bit of a technology jump that they had to go through, they connected better, because you know, some of the teachers would even say, oh, it's frustrating, we're learning this new stuff, but we're also learning a new LMS platform. And, you know, the students felt that too. So it really helped establish that rapport between students and faculty, because, I mean, it was the truth. We had some issues, as with any kind of transition, but we worked through them, and it was really good. Being able to recognize and focus on the message verbally and non-verbally in itself in order to accurately perceive the emotions of others is really important when it comes to empathy awareness, especially when you're in an online setting, and maybe not everyone wants to be in an online setting. So the next point that's probably the most important one is communication. So Dr. Qatanani, do you want to talk about that?
Absolutely. So communication is really a key point here for online. And all department, not just only on these education department side, it's enrollment, student service. We need to increase this communication to serve the student. We need to work, I always believe we need to work smart, not hard. We don't want to duplicate work. We want to really serve the student in the best way we can. In order to do that, we got to increase communication and follow up. For a new student, we need to have a tracking on how we really want to make sure the student, they are 100% ready for online modalities. And when if the student needs to struggle, what type of communication we need to implement, what type of resources we need to support the student. Do we have links where the student can click and take these services to tutoring or maybe even personal issues? Sometimes it's not related to their academic progress. Probably some personal issue. We got to really be on top of it and making sure they are receiving the services, and in order for them to continue their path to finish their program. And that's where the online and provide the best customer service and improve and increase communication, it's very critical. The other section is the timely fashion. I 100% believe online and the time. It's very, very important, where if the student submits something, for example, the student cannot wait to receive a grade from their faculty. I do believe the timely fashion is very important, not just only on the grade from the faculty or respond to their question or concern. It's about these communications and making sure we are addressing every single issue the students have and making sure we are following up with his or her issues. So I do believe the timely is so important. That's why when we really have an expectation from faculty, if the faculty become on board or a new hire, they got to really help the student and making sure they are communicating with them in the timely manner. Feedback from the student and faculty. There's multiple ways you can track the feedback on the online, from the student survey, faculty survey, satisfaction survey, and on these discussion forum announcement and discussion forum in these platform where we can track the student respond and what type of issue the student is facing or what type of improvement we can do for the future. Probably something related to the curriculum where we can help and improve. One of the key points here on the communication is not just internal, it could be externally with the employer, from advisory board, how we can help these understand the program and what the program need to really work and collaborate with the outside, making sure we are up-to-date information with the program. And if there's something we need to implement in the future, this is the best opportunity for us to really work with outside employer and vendors to make sure we are up to date with information technology and the curriculum.
One thing that I want to be sure to mention is that empathy and empathetic leaders really go a long way in prospering a positive climate in this constant change environment. Empathy helps bridge those gaps that result from the difference in culture, gender, sexuality, socioeconomic status, race, ethnicity, religion, and other types of differences between students, clients, and counselors. The tutorial stance really is that the helper is the learner, and empathy requires an active effort to let the student know that we are making the effort to understand and feel what it's like to be them and help them in any way that we can. What I found the most important part of being a asynchronous instructor with synchronous sessions was showing that I cared to my students, building that rapport with my students, being willing to take the time to listen to what they needed. If they needed to have a one-on-one session with me, being available to them when they wanted to talk and and listening, really, really listening to what they have to say. Sometimes the listening was enough to build the rapport I needed to be able to help them be more successful in the classroom. Sometimes it required a little additional help. We did have several services at our institution for counseling that we could refer students to because, we're not all counselors. We don't have terminal degrees in counseling. There are professionals for that. So it was nice that when we saw some of these really challenging times, our school listened to us as leaders and got us those additional services to help, really bridge the gap. So, Dr. Qatanani, do you want to?
Absolutely. It's so important for us, with COVID or without COVID, we should be prepared. For faculty who teach on the ground, the best way to really avoid any scenarios happen like COVID or not, we got to build everything on the platform, regardless Canvas, Moodle, or Blackboard, or any LMS you're utilizing. Build this content in these platform, making sure the outcome it's aligned there. And if there's any practical or lab there, you could still perform this lab on the ground, but you have all the record there on the LMS platform. In case if something happened or the student cannot attend, you can communicate with the student through this LMS, making sure you're not missing anything and you are well prepared for the next. And this is great, not just only for interaction with the student, it's the grade book itself. Since there is a lot of paperwork happening before COVID, where a lot of manual work, you don't have to do manual work anymore. You can utilize this LMS as a great book for you to really have recording and making sure you are up to date with information, and you can track the student. You can follow up easily. If they have something, you can really submit something online versus you just want to wait for them to come into the campus and do it. So that's where I feel like we got to be prepared all the time. From the admin increase, the communication is very critical. We got to collaborate with the other department in order for us to help the students. Sometimes as the education department, we don't really have every single answer for the student. We really want to understand what type of resources and help the student need and who they should contact and how we can really simplifies the process for them and help them throughout their journey. So yes, Jen, back to you.
Yes, one thing I did want to also mention that was mentioned in the keynote that I really resonated with was changing some assignments to help lessen the burden to different deliverables. And what I did in a lot of my communication classes, instead of having them submit papers after papers after papers, they submitted videos that really encapsulated what they were supposed to learn in that particular unit. And it was a short video that they made that, I was taken back each week because that also helped build that rapport in the classroom. And it established just this really great way for me to make a video back as feedback. So they were getting feedback in a different way, not just the writing and the notes on the paper or notes within the document. They were getting, visual context back. So my overall recommendation is just to always be prepared for any circumstances when it comes to online modalities. A lot of times there's technology issues, and being willing to kind of laugh at those moments with your students and say, you know what, we're going to get this fixed. Don't worry about it and move forward. And also to be very empathetic in your communication with students, because for every one student that was willing to come forward saying that, there had been a death in their family, there was probably at least 3 or 4 more that were experiencing other really large grief situations and trauma in their lives.
So my last advice, regardless online or ground, we always need to be prepared. as good as the outcome is there and we are meet the requirement and the quality, is the student, there's tons now students start graduate from online school and they provide the same quality who did receive education on the ground. So there, I don't see a challenge happening as good as we prepare these students and making sure they're up to speed with their skills. And the way to track them, you can implement a lot of way to track these competencies within every single course in order for you to have a visual information for these students so they are ready for the task. And good for the student to know exactly where they at and if they are ready to move to the next level or not. And this is good for you because if the student graduate from your online program, you know exactly they are 100% they can perform these skills well, and they will present you at the end. So we can stay here. Jen, would you like to stay here in case if there's any question?
Yeah, so I do have a question. Do you have any tips for helping instructors manage the changes in grading expectations now that there are different options for assignments? So we do usually do at our institution at least once a year a grading tips training. So that offers them, how to manage some of these different deliverables. And some of those different deliverables include leaving voice comments for assignments or leaving video comments for assignments. And we go through some of the best ways to incorporate personalized feedback, but also incorporate the feedback that you normally would for an assignment when it's missing, some kind of a component. So we do offer training yearly, and I like to think of it along the lines of it's constantly changing. So we're constantly trying to find other best practices as we go. I see there's another question from Amy Cook. We had a student last summer who lost his mother during the first week of class. The student was not really able to keep up with the class requirements after this. And so rather than change the rules for him, we presented him with the option to take the class next year. Might we have dealt with the situation in a more empathetic manner? I think so, actually. I think being a little more open to extending deadlines and being a support mechanism for this student. One thing that we faced with our students, because we have students that go in 5-week modalities, some that go in 8-week modalities, and some that go 16 weeks. If they're in one of the longer modalities, it's a lot easier to sort of slow down your deadlines and say, you know what, we're going to work with the student the first few weeks and let them catch up. Unfortunately, some of those very short modalities, it seems like you do have to say, well, maybe you just need a leave of absence for a few weeks so you can help get everything in order. But I do think that encouraging the student to still stay in the classroom is the most important part, because once they leave the classroom, they leave their regular regiment and the way that they do things and the mode that they get in to get their assignments done. So I personally am a proponent for trying to keep the student in the classroom and just being more flexible with deadlines.
It's amazing how online will give you the student flexibility to really continue their assignment 7 days a week. It was really great. Never happened before. Maybe 10, 20 years ago was really a lot of challenges happening now. How to use really this new LMS. Now we have a great software where we can keep the student engaged and making sure we are up-to-date information with these students. So I think we're all blessed to have a new technology, and we just need to really maximize the student learning and really leverage these technology to serve these students.
If I was to encapsulate the final message, it would be, being empathetic in all the situations, and keep in mind that the students are as human as you are, and building that rapport in the classroom and saying, hey, it's really stressful right now, sometimes is the easiest way to communicate and acknowledge that stressor. Thank you, everyone, for attending.
Thank you, everyone.